So this is an important one, cash versus gold. You're not going to get to the meaning of life in this one. You're probably not going to get any single answer to anything really, but we're going to try not to lose money. And that seemed a little bit more important before I compared it to the meaning of life, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. Okay, so the question of whether or not to convert cash reserves into gold comes up a lot. Which is safer? And then which is going to hold its value better? Physical gold or cash in the bank? Now, the question can't be answered. You just have to weigh it out and decide on your own. But if there's any advice to be given, it's probably just to be careful. Don't go all in on either route unless you're completely sure of your reasons, and then look at the historical performance to get a sense of what might happen. And if you do convert cash to gold, you can pretty much be sure that the shorter the holding period, the higher the risk. And I've given the example of a friend who sold his family home and then converted the proceeds into silver and gold. He was convinced that silver was going to appreciate in a short amount of time, and he used a vaulting service that took care of a high dollar transfer. In the end, he came out more or less even, but his original plan got blown out of the water. I forget what his timeline was, but it wouldn't have worked out to be inside of it. I think it was either a year or 2 years. He would have lost cash value. And that's only one example. It's one anecdote, but it stands out to me as a real world case of somebody who did it. And he was pretty sure at the time that he was going to come out ahead. Now, he did ask me. I wasn't so sure. Now, the reason that I was doubtful was mostly a case of timing, because really there are two separate ideas here: converting long-term savings and then converting a short-term cash position. That'd be in the hope that the money does something in the meantime. Typically, we'd be talking about something like a down payment for an upcoming real estate deal, but that really doesn't matter. Most people are looking at the first one, converting savings or retirement funds into gold. And they already have the reasons worked out. They're trying to limit counterparty risk, or they just lack confidence in the dollar, maybe the banking system. But it's a specific set of considerations beyond the price action of gold. Now, the second one, though, converting a short-term cash position, that is almost always about gold price expectations. There are similar considerations to the first one, but the order of priority is different, and I think the two ideas are very different things. And we're going to focus on the second one, because that's the question that comes up the most often, and it seems to be coming up a lot more lately. And in the case of holding cash reserves in gold for a short period of time, we really need to consider three things: acquisition cost, potential appreciation, and risk. Let's start off with the numbers. A year ago today, June 1st, 2021, the spot price of gold was $1,900. And today, or at least at the time of this recording, it's $1,870. So had you converted your cash savings to gold the first banking day of June 2021, and then converted it back to cash 1 year later, June 1st, 2022, you would have lost 1.5% of your cash value, and that doesn't include lost premiums. Now, assuming we're talking about physical, generally speaking, premiums are going to add 5% at the time of purchase. You can call it 3% if you're buying in bulk, but in American Gold Eagle, that's going to cost you more at the time of purchase than, say, a generic gold bar, but you'll get back more in the sale as well. So regardless of what you buy, let's just assume you're going to lose 3% in the buy to sell spread. So with that in mind, the spot price of gold needs to increase by 3% just to maintain the cash value. And that 1.5% loss that you would have experienced had you held savings in gold for exactly 1 year from June 2021 to June 2022, well, that would have been more like a 4.5% loss when you factor in premium. Now, the most important thing that I can say about this whole topic is that if you look at any one single window of time, it can be extremely misleading. So we are going to do a little bit of that. Actually, we're going to look at 10. We're going to keep the 1 year time frame from June to June, but we're going to look at the past 5 years to start. We're going to open that up a little bit after that. So let's just start off with 2018. The spot price of gold was $1,295 June 1st, 2018. It was $1,305 June 1st, 2019. It was $1,740 June 1st, 2020, $1,900 2021, and then $1,870 June 1st, 2022. Actually, I think I'm using June 2nd numbers, but close enough. Now, if we look at that in terms of percentages, 2017 to 2018 would have been a 2% increase in the spot price of gold. 2018 to 2019 would have been a 1% increase. 2019 to 2020 would have been a 33.3% increase. That would have been a good year. 2020 to 2021 would have been a 9.2% increase. 2021 to 2022, that's what we're looking at right now, would have been a 1.5% loss. So if you're keeping count, and actually you don't need to, I'll do it for you. If you converted cash to gold in June and then you converted it back 1 year later, you would have lost money 3 out of the 5 years that I just showed you. So let's widen that out a little bit more. We'll go back 10 years. Now, if you stuck to that same idea, 1 year period of time, you would have lost money 7 years out of 10, since only one of the prior 5 years came out ahead. So it's not looking very good for this idea of converting cash to gold for only 1 year and then converting it back. 7 out of 10 years, you would have lost money. That's not great. Now, if you stop here, you're going to get that very specific impression of what happens. Again, we're talking about historical anecdotes, and we're also looking at a very specific time. So let's change that time frame. If you were to hold for 10 years, converting cash to gold in June of 2012 and then back to cash in 2022, well, you would have been up 20%. And had you held for 5 years from 2017 to 2022, you would have been up 50%, because the spot price in 2012 was pretty high. Spot price in 2017 was low. Now, I'm not picking a time frame to tell any particular story. I just picked June because, well, it's June. But statistically speaking, this is a random baseline that's been plotted against 10 similar time frames for comparison. This is not something that we could use as any kind of instruction of what's going to happen going forward, but I know that I wouldn't personally convert cash into gold if my plan was to convert it back again inside of 12 months. The potential upside, it just isn't high enough for me compared to the risk. And I would say that the potential to lose money on that deal is about even with the potential to make money, since we need to see at least 3% appreciation by this time next year just to be even. Now, holding for 5 years, holding for 10 years, that's different to me. I'm pretty confident that we'd be ahead of premium given a little bit more time. So I said this has been coming up more lately. It's more than that, I guess. I've answered a few questions on it in the comments lately by writing that I'm not sure that I'd do it. But actually, I'm positive that I wouldn't do it, because I just finished a property sale recently and I won't be converting the proceeds into gold. Now, I want to use that for something else, and my plan is to roll it into a 1031 tax exchange, and that only allows 180 days. But I'd have the same answer if I had a full year. It just doesn't make sense to me. If I didn't need that money and I plan to let it sit for 10 years, I'd still be looking to invest it. I'm just not a huge fan of sidelined cash. Maybe I'd convert some portion of it to gold. I just explained that a little bit. I'm a lot more interested in buying gold over time with money that I've freed up from possible expenses than I am from taking it from investments. So this was a question of converting sidelined cash in the first place. It wasn't a question of gold versus the market or gold versus some other investment. I'm always up for buying gold with wayward cash, and that's where a lot of my gold budget comes from, but I'm never up for buying gold at the expense of not being able to make investments. This topic is in that third category. Anyway, like I said, it's about converting savings, converting sidelined cash that was not going to be invested. So it's almost a question of whether it can beat ridiculously low interest rates that you'd see in a savings account. Now, over time, for me, it has. I'm ahead of savings interest, of course, but going forward, the biggest consideration is going to be timing. I think that covers it. So let us know what you think, whether you've converted lump sum cash holdings to gold, either for short periods or for the long haul. I think we'd like to hear about it. We could use a few more examples. And while you're there in the comments, be sure to hit that like button if you found any of this interesting. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you want to see more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.